truly humbled at the invitation from the Utah Coalition Against Pornography to speak at this conference. I mean, truly humbled. After all, who wants to be named as the replacement speaker for Elder Jeffrey R. Holland in his hometown of St. George? So I hope you'll be kind to me. Like you, my circle of family and friends has been impacted by pornography. And I represent all in attendance today in thanking the organizers and sponsors of this conference and of this community coalition that does so much to help those who are wrestling with this challenge in their life. The theme of today's conference is the hope effect. I am not a professionally trained counselor in helping people overcome pornography, but in my ministry in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have found that hope is absolutely essential for people of all ages who are dealing with this malady in their life. In Dante's 14th century masterpiece Inferno, there is an inscription on the entrance gate of hell, and at the end of that inscription it says, "Abandon hope, all hope, ye who enter here." I have found that people who deal with pornography can sometimes feel that way. They begin to lose hope, as do their spouses and their loved ones, because the emotions that come from this addiction can sometimes feel like a personal hell from which there's little chance of escape. Why might we lose hope? Well, maybe because pornography is so readily accessible. No longer is pornography restricted to images, softcore images in a magazine wrapped in black plastic, locked behind a convenience store counter. Today we have hardcore pornography videos in HD that are available for free and immediately downloaded to a mobile phone. Therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that the results of this easy access, including children having their first exposure, it could be as early as 11, I've heard as early as 6, that 70% of males aged 18 to 24 view pornography sites at least monthly, and that 1 of 3 pornography users is a woman. Pornography is no longer exclusively a male problem. Why else might we lose hope? Perhaps because of the increasing amount of published research about the harmful effects of pornography that cause users and their spouses and loved ones to perhaps think that change is not possible. They read in various studies that pornography use affects the brain. Studies have found that even moderate porn use impacts cognitive function and correlates with depression, anxiety, stress, and social problems. Pornography use affects the heart, the center of human emotion. Men who use pornography report being less satisfied with their partner's physical appearance, sexual performance, and level of affection. Real intimacy declines and marital relationships break down. Pornography use affects society. Research shows that male pornography users have an increased negative attitude toward women, decreased empathy for victims of sexual violence, and an increase in behavioral aggression. These findings signify the hypersexualization of our modern society. This is the toxic environment in which our children are being raised and our marriages struggle to survive. In such circumstances, Dante's soul-draining statement seems almost prophetic. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. But it need not be so. You can recall this bold proclamation by a woman quite acquainted with a seemingly hopeless set of circumstances, Helen Keller. She wrote, "Nothing can be done without hope." A corollary might be that anything can be done with hope, including overcoming this plague of pornography, whether as an individual or as a society. My message today is that there is every reason to hope for a better life. We must do our absolute best to keep hope alive in our hearts, minds, and souls. The acronym HOPE summarizes 4 ideas that I think anyone striving to overcome pornography use or those who are affected by others' pornography use must absolutely believe in order to have hope. You must believe that healing is possible. You must believe that openness brings strength. You must believe that patterns can change. And you must believe that enjoyment will come. I'll discuss these 4 elements one by one with the desire to provide hope to anyone dealing with this problem, whether it's personally, or your spouse, or your child, or a loved one, or if you're a religious leader trying to help those who are dealing with this. I want to assure you that there is light at the end of the tunnel for those who undertake the proper course. During my presentation, I'll share with you a few new and not yet publicly released videos that will be part of an upgraded website by my church. And these videos reflect the way that hope is being incorporated into the way we're helping people address pornography. So first, you must believe that healing is possible. I'm concerned that many teenagers and young adults with whom I've worked are too quick to label themselves as an addict. There's this sense of, I'd rather be labeled a heroin addict than a porn addict in religious communities. For young people, just thinking that they are an addict causes some real damage. They retreat from their religious and social communities. They don't feel that they're entitled to romantic love, and they stop dating. And because of this addict label, many youth and young adults lose hope that they can be healed. On the other hand, I'm concerned that many older people, particularly those in outwardly content marriages, are too slow to admit that they have a pornography addiction. In their minds, and unfortunately often in the minds of their pastor or bishop, addiction is about frequency of use. Usage frequency may define addiction for substances, but not for sexual behaviors. I think we would all agree that the person who compulsively watches pornography several times a day is clearly addicted. He or she covers that behavior with secrecy. But the person who binge watches pornography for 2 nights, every 3 months, over decades, engages in the same type of frequency. He or she may also have an addiction, even though it is engaged in less frequently. Now, experience has taught me that every story is different, and it's difficult for laymen like me to understand how severely affected someone is by pornography. Therapists use something like this following gauge to determine how to help someone. Think of these levels like signal strength on a mobile phone, with more bars representing a stronger porn signal to a user's brain. I start with exposure, which occurs with children and adolescents, rarely with adults, when a person innocently stumbles upon pornography. Youth can feel intense shame when they stumble across this and feel great guilt, even if they just looked for a moment. Experiences like this are opportunities for parents to teach children in their homes about the power and beauty of our God-given sexuality and about the blessing of human intimacy, how to protect themselves from being exposed to porn in the future, and how to prevent it from becoming more serious. Experimentation occurs when a younger individual, again say a younger individual, has repeatedly and intentionally accessed pornography. She knows that it is wrong, but is confused by why something bad makes her body feel good. This is an opportunity for parents and religious leaders to teach proper human intimacy. Experimentation can last for up to a month, but if it goes beyond that, our young friend may be in danger of developing a dependency on pornography. The third level, exception, occurs when a person is caught using pornography. The user usually explains, this is an exception, this is my first time. But this is often a lie and an indication of an unwillingness to change. Parents and religious leaders are limited in what they can do to help such a person who takes a defensive approach. Spouses, on the other hand, are torn. On one hand, they feel this great sense of betrayal. On the other hand, they're sometimes told by their bishop or their pastor, well, it's not so bad, it could have been a lot worse. And that is a difficult message to hear. Finally, exclusivity occurs when people protect their pornography use with secrets and deceit. They've entered into an exclusive relationship with an addiction in order to deal with the stresses of life. It is not helpful to say to someone with this habit that a simple behavioral change will make the difference. Many people pray more and read their scriptures more and still falter. The reality is that that pornography use affects us physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, and relationally. They need tools to counter these aspects of their addiction, usually through therapy and support groups. So to summarize, There is no question that clinicians can accurately diagnose addiction. But for the rest of us, we need to be careful about labels. A teen may mistakenly think that she is an addict doomed forever, and while a married man may incorrectly think that his occasional use is not an addiction. But neither the young teen or the married man will be able to summon the will to get the kind of help they need and to do the hard work necessary to overcome pornography. But if they properly understand their situation, then they can obtain hope, begin to believe that healing is possible, and gain the capacity to change. Please, no matter the level of pornography exposure or use, never abandon hope that healing is possible. You're wise to be in this conference today. The speakers are extremely qualified, and they will share their approaches and experiences with you on preventing and also for recovering from pornography use. They can tell you that healing is not only possible, but also common. The approach used by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in overcoming pornography, like that of other Christian denominations, draws on the power of Jesus Christ and his atonement. Christ is not a distant and unfeeling judge. I have learned that he is near and full of compassion. From the beginning of his earthly ministry, Jesus astonished the multitudes with his ability to heal almost any affliction. In his day, leprosy was a disease for which there was no hope for cure or healing. For that reason, I've always loved this interchange found in Mark chapter 1. Quote, "And there came a leper to him, beseeching him, and kneeling down to him, and saying unto him, If thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And Jesus, moved with compassion, put forth his hand and touched him, and saith unto him, I will, be thou clean. And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed." Close quote. Pornography is the leprosy and the plague of our day. Its effects are everywhere. But I believe that Christ can heal now just as he did then. The healing may not come immediately, but he will respond to our hope and to our faith. And he will give a user a strength to continue to pursue healing until that compulsive urge to view pornography diminishes. He will also give a spouse strength to find healing. My second point in overcoming pornography use is that you must believe that openness brings strength. The first step to openness is having the courage to leave the dark. Pornography use and habits thrive in the dark. The dark may mean getting up in the middle of the night when our spouse or our parents are sleeping. The dark may be a hotel room when we're traveling for our employment. The dark may mean a closet at home or a bathroom at work for those with a more compulsive use. The dark even means being isolated and alone, even if connected to another person, another living person who is also in the dark and isolated and alone. The dark is any deceit towards those that we love most. Exposure to light can significantly reduce, if not stop, pornography use. Let me draw an analogy from biology, comparing pornography to bacteria. Hospitals use ultraviolet lights and lamps to kill bacteria, the single-celled microorganisms that cause diseases. Bacteria grow through rapid cell division. Shortwave ultraviolet light found in sunbeams deactivates the DNA bacteria and stopping growth through cell division. Simply put, harmful bacteria die by exposure to light. Like rapidly reproducing bacteria, pornography use thrives in the dark. Similarly, exposure to the right kind of light can take out pornography's chances for continuing growth in a person's life. Just as someone living in a dark home must open the curtains and the doors to let in light, a user of pornography must be open in their use in order to draw on others' strengths and to increase their own. A pornography user, to get real light and strength into their life, must move out of the dark and into confession and connection. The confession might be to a partner or spouse, to a parent, to a friend, or to a religious minister. Such confession, when done with the intent of true healing, rather than sharing barely enough to placate their conscience, initiates real change. The user is no longer left to fight this on their own. Confession and connection bring real strength and hope. I feel to emphasize that the response to a pornography confession will be quite different for a parent or religious leader than it will be for a spouse. I begin with the parent or the religious leader. In my ministry, I've met many teenage boys who were exposed to and began to use pornography at the ages of 11 or 12. Some boys' parents or bishop reacted in extreme disappointment or anger at the initial confession and caused them to feel deep shame. Later, those boys tended to lie and say that the problem was solved when it really wasn't. In contrast, those parents or bishop who had an open door and reacted in love these boys were more willing to be honest with them over time, and more of them found healing. Maybe the best thing that parents or religious leaders can say upon hearing a confession is to lovingly say, "Thank you for opening up to me. We'll get through this. Now, tell me what's been going on." In contrast, the worst thing that a parent or a pastor or bishop can say is, "How could you do something so awful?" Let me emphasize, let me repeat again, the initial response by that religious leader or by the parent has to be full of love, hope, and support. Something like this: God loves you. I love you. I will do all I can do to help you get through this. I now address the much more difficult matter of confession to a spouse, typically by the husband, but by wives too. We cannot minimize the intense emotions that a wife feels upon discovery that her husband uses pornography. An expert has written, quote, "When someone engages in any frequency or use or any level of involvement, his or her spouse will experience feelings of heartbreak, betrayal trauma, rejection, shame, and questioning of self-worth. Pornography use damages the connection, trust, and communication essential to a healthy relationship, making it vital for a spouse to seek hope and healing." Close quote. A note for those who are LDS bishops in the audience: please listen to the wife when she comes to talk to you. Listen to her, be honest, and trust what she's saying to you. Even though a wife may desire to be absolutely Christ-like and respond to her husband's confession with love and not judgment, it is absolutely normal for that not to be the initial reaction. She has been lied to for years. Her heart has been pierced. The relationship that she's relied on and trusted in has seemingly been instantaneously destroyed. But with time and perhaps with professional help, she will begin to feel gratitude for her husband's courage to come forward and to be open and be healed and to help their marriage be healed. Let's watch this video from pornography users and their spouses who learned that they could not overcome a pornography habit on their own.
I didn't think I would ever be happy again. I thought that if we stayed married, that we would just be one of those fake couples pretending to be happy on the outside and just being miserable on the inside.
It was so heavy and so exhausting to even think about how to dig ourselves out of this hole.
I started in that relationship with really high levels of self-esteem, self-worth, as a happy person, and I left completely hollowed out.
Around the time my husband got excommunicated, I was really into the digging. I wanted to dig it all out. I wanted to discover it all. And I had this overwhelming prompting, and the Holy Ghost just said, "Stop. You know enough."
If I live in the past, I am a woman that is a victim, betrayed and angry, resentful. I don't like to even think about being that kind of woman.
And so I chose to fight it, and I chose to research it and to find a way out and to seek recovery for myself.
I have been through a lot of counseling, participated in groups and activities, designed to help women find healing.
And I changed the way I lived. I put safety precautions in place. I became very aware of what my weaknesses were, and I reached out for help.
I've been able to live in peace and serenity and joy. even. The power for a better and happier future really is in my hands.
You have to remember that confession for most people will not be a one-time process, that slips and reoccurrences are likely to happen. Still, experts find that the more complete, accurate, and vulnerable the first disclosure is, the greater the possibility for the relationship enduring. Full disclosure avoids later much more painful revelations. It can be very helpful to seek assistance, professional assistance, in preparing for and making an effective disclosure. Now, pornography users must be compassionate to themselves. Continually shaming and beating yourself up is not helpful. Without self-compassion, you will not foster the belief that healing can occur and that change will come and that you'll fear being open with others. Now, to spouses or parents of those struggling with pornography use, you too can continue to strive to be as compassionate and as empathetic as those you love make difficult changes in their lives. However, I recognize that compassion in a betrayed marriage can feel impossible, especially when relapses happen and trust is broken over and over and over. And at some point, if there is little remorse, and if the pornography addict's behavior, the spouse's behavior, does not change, and then, quote, there is a prolonged and apparently irredeemable pattern which is destructive to your dignity as a human being, close quote, then divorce may be the outcome. But before that painful point of no return, may I say that God smiles upon and loves you for every single act of compassion, whether you stay married or not. I know that as pornography use is brought out of the dark and into the light through confession and compassion and connection, that the strength will come both to users and to those affected by their use. The third element of hope that someone must believe in order to overcome pornography is that patterns can change. Many of today's breakout sessions will be led by experienced counselors who can share their approaches and practical tools to help people dealing with these challenges. I'd like to step back for a moment and introduce an overarching behavioral model that my church's upcoming website will call the cycle of shame. We have found that one of the most significant barriers to changing the patterns of pornography use is shame. The noted professor and popular speaker, Dr. Brene Brown, has written and spoken extensively on the culture of shame. She wrote, quote, shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. And shame erodes our courage and fuels disengagement, close quote. So let's explore this cycle, describing the experiences of a typical pornography user, whom I will call John, and his wife, whom I will call Jane. Interestingly, John's shame cycle begins in a good place as he strives for ideals and perfection. Deep down, John really wants to be great. And as a Christian, he wants to fulfill somehow Jesus' invitation to be therefore perfect. But John is human, and we all have weaknesses that cause us to fall short of our ideals. When John initially falls short of his ideal behavior and uses pornography, he feels guilt. Guilt is a feeling of responsibility or remorse for offending moral law. John's conscience makes it clear to him that he did something wrong, or what a religious person would call sin. In my experience, when someone feels guilty for something they've done, the natural response is to try to change the behavior. Hope remains even amid feelings of guilt. But in contrast, John, like many who fall short of their ideals, goes beyond guilt to shame. Shame is a feeling of disgrace, dishonor, or public contempt. Shame convinces John that he is bad and unworthy of love and anyone's acceptance. It diminishes his feelings of self-worth. Shame causes a pornography user like John to experience feelings of despair and hopelessness. Unfortunately, when Jane discovered John's pornography use, she too had feelings of shame. I must lack the beauty and sexual drive that John needs, which were not true. John's porn use was absolutely not Jane's fault. As long as John was committed to pornography, no woman could ever be beautiful enough or sexy enough. When an individual is seeking sex stemming from addictive intentions, his appetite can never be satisfied. John's habit resulted from his choices, not anything that Jane did. Now, negative feelings from the despair of shame will create hurt, so naturally we want to escape them. Many, like John, turn to pornography use as an escape from the emotional pain. By repeatedly using pornography to escape through the powerful reward of sexual gratification, John forms habits that are very difficult to break. Sometimes John resolves to stop his pain by saying, I'm going to be perfect from now on. I call it white knuckling it. But despite his determination to be perfect, he once again encounters his mortal weakness and again falls into the same behavior. Again he feels guilt and then shame. Around and around and around it goes, causing John to strengthen his habit. He feels more distant from his best self, Jane, loved ones, and God, thus deepening his feelings of shame and despair. So the best way to stop the shame cycle is to interrupt it and then replace it with the hope cycle. John began to interrupt feelings of shame by remembering his identity as a person of worth. John was taught in his church that we are each sons and daughters of a Heavenly Father who loves us and that we have a divine destiny. Abraham Lincoln said it this way, quote, "It is difficult to make a man miserable while he feels worthy of himself and claims kindred to the great God who made him," close quote. A person who understands his or her identity can begin to change from feelings of shame, I am bad, I am a mistake, to feelings of guilt. I made a mistake. I did something bad and I can change. Two very different feelings. With this hope, John obtains the courage that instead of escaping pain, he experiences connection by telling his painful story to people he trusts, specifically his spouse Jane, his parents, and his religious leader. The pornography user begins to break free from this dependency when he or she admits to a trusted soul, my life is out of control. This is bigger than me. I need help. John begins to connect with real people, the essence of human experience, rather than digital fantasies. Real human connection requires deep humility and absolute honesty. As John alleviates his emotional pain through experiencing real connection with Jane and with others, he is better able to stop escaping pain through the immediate reward of pornography use. Now, like most pornography users, John had fallen into a set patterns or habits that caused him to fall short of his ideal behavior. To interrupt the cycle, John was asked to identify triggers. Now, for him, it was work stress, lack of sleep, and times of boredom. John then developed ways to avoid recurring traps. His plans included retiring to bed at the same time as Jane, leaving his mobile phone plugged in another room, and taking a walk when tempting thoughts came. Now, even with a plan to avoid and address behavioral triggers, John still needed to interrupt this experience of mortal weakness. Now, most addiction recovery programs, whether alcohol, drugs, or pornography, have at their core a means for drawing upon a higher power. Like other Christians, John chose to interrupt the shame cycle by shifting from a need to be flawless to turning to Jesus Christ when he made mistakes. Drawing on that divine source of power gave John and Jane the strength and hope to overcome. Once again, in my ministering experience of helping men and women change patterns, I have learned that guilt is helpful, shame is not. Let me emphasize and repeat that again. Guilt can be helpful, shame is not helpful. Guilt can be good if it leads us to change patterns of behavior, but shame triggers pain, and the quick, easy escape from pain leads us back into destructive patterns of pornography use. We need to strive for homes and for places of worship that are shame-free zones. Jesus Christ never shamed anyone, anywhere, anytime, ever. Shame is a tool that the devil uses to keep addicts as addicts. The fourth thing you must believe in order to have hope is that enjoyment will come, eventually with persistence. A biblical prophet wrote, "Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me." Micah knew that God's help is needed to be persistent when falling and rising and in moving from darkness to light. Persistence is a theme of one of our family's favorite movies, Galaxy Quest. The Commander Peter Quincy Taggart, the intergalactic ship's captain, had a signature line when he faced overwhelming odds: never give up and never surrender. Pornography users and those affected by that use can take hope from his words, to never give up, never surrender, have hope that things can change. Now, persistence in overcoming the effects of pornography will lead to joy. One of the tenets of my faith comes from the Book of Mormon, where the prophet Lehi did not say, "Men are that they might have pleasure." He said, "Men are that they might have joy." Joy is a completely different emotion than pleasure. Pleasure is made up of short-term feelings of satisfaction, whereas joy is an enduring emotion. Joy is part of the human experience when we truly connect with our fellow man. Now hopefully, Ralph's here, hopefully we can watch this video of some pornography users and spouses who share that you really can be happy again.
I had set some goals that I was trying to stop looking at it and was doing okay. But again, I was trying to do it on my own. And that, I don't know why I didn't learn my lesson before. That never worked.
Every time I indulged in looking at pornography, I would pray and say, "I'm done. I'm not going to do it again." And that was never the case.
I never wanted my wife to find out. Never, ever, ever, ever. In fact, I just wanted to be able to solve the problem on my own, and that she'd never have to go through that pain of knowing.
I always have these milestones in my head that, okay, when I go on my mission, I'm going to stop. Okay, when I get married in the temple, I mean, it's really going to be over. It was always the next milestone.
I can change this on my own, and I'll stop the behavior and just go on with my life. And that didn't happen.
The adversary advocates hiding and removing themselves from God's presence and from the presence of people that they love. But it's basically, if we take a look at the story of Genesis, that it's God who summons Adam and Eve forward and says, "Come out of hiding. Let's talk."
You have to let someone else know. You have to lose the anonymity. But that was very risky. You can't just walk up in the church and say, "Well, I got a porn problem." You know, that doesn't happen. That doesn't work.
Lies and secrecy keep you, of course, in this prison, but not only a prison that you're just stuck in, but one that is going to put you to death. There is a way out. That way out is through speaking the truth.
As much as I didn't want to tell my husband and I didn't want to tell other people, once I finally told the truth and exposed all of that, it's like part of that chain just broke off of me. There's freedom in just being honest.
I decided to get honest. And in doing so, I discovered that all of these lies that I had been told from the dark side about if you get honest, you're going to lose, I discovered that that was not true. There were consequences, but those consequences didn't mean you're going to lose everything. It means that you're going to have work to do.
When Ryan told me that he struggled with pornography or that he was in recovery for it, I felt like this great feeling of peace because I knew he was being honest with me, and I thought that was a huge, important quality in somebody I wanted to marry.
It's the greatest hope of anyone struggling with this. Can I do this alone? Do I really have to tell someone about it? I think that misses the joy and the beauty of healing because we're made to be communal people.
Just telling somebody is huge. I had no idea that it could be like this, and I just wish I could take that out of my heart and give it to someone so they know how much hope is out there, because there's so much hope on the other side.
Let me restate the theme of today's conference, the hope effect. A journey out of the harmful effects of pornography use must begin with, continue with, and end in hope. Everyone who is trying to overcome pornography use or their loved ones must believe that healing is possible, that openness brings strength, that patterns really can change, and that enjoyment will come. Perhaps there are some in attendance at the conference today that feel like a refugee, which the dictionary describes as a person who flees for refuge or safety as in time of upheaval. At a recent symposium about political refugees, my colleague, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, said the following, quote, "People can live without a lot of things. They can live sometimes without much food. They can live sometimes without much hygiene and nutrition, but they can't live without hope. They've got to know that it's going to get better." I think his words apply not only to political refugees, but pornography refugees. You have to believe, you have to hope that it's going to get better. As an ordained minister of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I'd like to say something to those who feel like they are now in or have been in Dante's inferno of hell. I'll close with a quote from the Book of Mormon about a father who struggled with a difficult path in his life and near the end wrote these words, "The Lord hath redeemed my soul from hell. I have beheld his glory, and I am encircled about eternally in the arms of his love." My friends, may I assure you that pornography does not need to lead to your destruction or to those who love you. You can come out of the darkness and be illuminated by light. At the center of that light is the Lord Jesus Christ. He encircles all in the embrace of his arms, one by one, including the pornography user, his or her spouse, friends, family, loved ones. He carries our burdens that they may be light, and at times he carries us when we think we can walk no further. No wonder the Bible calls him the hope of Israel. Your journey out of Dante's Inferno and the harmful effects of pornography must begin with, continue with, and end in hope. Never give up hope. Never give up. Never surrender. You must have hope. You must know that it's going to get better. I know that it will. Thank you, and God bless you in your efforts.